When I was asked to talk about a topic that I thought might be worth knowing or sharing that might help others in pursuit of being the best they can be, I knew immediately what I wanted to talk about. If I were to tell you that there is a mindset, a way of thinking that shows up time and time and time again in the highest performing teams in businesses and organizations, and that this mindset underpins our ability to be the best that we can be, however we define that for ourselves in any given situation, I'm guessing you might quite like to know what it is. But first, a personal story. I think I have always been the sort of person who believes that you can achieve anything you want to achieve if you just put your mind to it. And by way of an example, I discovered nightclubs and boys at around the same time as I started studying for my A-levels. Not a good combination. I say studying with the loosest sense of the word because I had about this much interest in maths, economics, and French, and consequently didn't really attend many lessons at all. And those lessons that I did attend, I largely spent with the earpiece of a Sony Walkman cassette player plugged into one ear, pretending to listen to the economics teacher with the other. But about 3 weeks before my A-level exams, I decided that I might quite like to go to university. Freshers' Week and freedom being the two enticing factors. So with the mindset that you can achieve anything you want to if you just put your mind to it, tucked safely under my arm, I set about learning 2 years of curriculum in 3 weeks. Now, much to my parents' surprise and my teachers' indignation, I actually got the grades that I needed to get to university, and off I skipped to Freshers' Week and freedom. This mindset that you can be anything you want to be if you just put your mind to it has led me to a career in performance improvement, helping organisations help their people be the best that they can be in any given situation. And over the 25 years of doing this, I've met some really interesting people and worked with some really interesting and very famous organisations, actually. But the idea that mindset has a massive impact on performance really came into sharp focus when I was working with quite a large team of salespeople. Now, this team of salespeople had quite a unique job. So if you think about in today's economy, 2 clicks on Google and you can literally get any package you want delivered to your door, seemingly within an hour these days. These salespeople had a very different job. They were selling quite high-value products inside a customer's home. So this is a unique experience in today's economy. And there were 500 of them all over the country selling inside customers' homes. And the sales leader in charge, understandably, wanted to drive up sales performance. Who wouldn't when you're a sales leader? And he had quite an interesting group of salespeople working for him. He had what we call a very wide performance distribution. Now, what that means is, at this end of the spectrum, he had a fairly small percentage of really low performers. In the middle, he had quite an abundance of average performers, all operating around the middle. But at the top end, he had these 6 outliers, if you like, these 6 high performers that were outperforming everybody else in the group. And he understandably wanted to know why. What did these 6 performers have that everybody else didn't have? Was it some unique sales capability that they developed over time, or were they just blessed with that gift of the gab that only certain salespeople have? So we set about trying to find out what it was. So we took these 6 high performers and we put them through simulations, we interviewed them, we assessed every aspect of their performance to try to work out what was it that they were doing that other people weren't. And it was quite interesting. This is a representation of what they roughly looked like. These 6 high performers didn't have an awful lot in common at all. They were all bringing an incredibly different and unique way of selling into customers' homes. You had everything from the nice guy through the problem solver, the researcher, all incredibly different. But the one thing that they did have in common, other than all being men, but the one thing they did have in common was their mindset. Now, it's hardly an atom-splitting discovery that mindset impacts on performance. In fact, 2 clicks on Google and you'll get 29 related articles relating to the subject. So that wasn't the discovery. The discovery was this. They had an incredibly similar way of thinking. Now, while their peers and colleagues were all operating down here, so wallowing in the limiting belief of, oh, the job's too hard, I can never do it, or making excuses. It's much easier to sell to the Welsh than it is to the Scottish. Somebody actually said that to me. Or blaming others. I'd be amazing if my manager was better. Or waiting and hoping for the magic wand of success to tap them on the head in the middle of the night. The other 6 high performers were actively operating above the dotted line. They were taking responsibility for their performance and taking action off their own bat every single day to improve. Here's 3 examples. One of them said to me that after every single appointment, he would drive his car around the corner and he would sit in there and he would go through every element of the conversation that he'd just had, working out what had gone well and what had gone badly, and making a change in the moment so the very next conversation would be different. Another one said to me that he was worried about his technical knowledge, and in the absence of any good training materials for the company he worked for, he used to go online in his own time and download technical specifications of product and learn it overnight so that he'd be better the next day. And another guy told me about what they all used to call rubbish appointments. It was very widely well known in the team that there were certain customers that it was really hard to sell to. They called them the rubbish appointments. And these 6 high performers, they used to use those rubbish appointments as an opportunity to practice a different art, to practice a new way of selling to customers. And so they would always show up to those appointments, while the rest of the sales force used to say that they never used to show up to those because they weren't worth attending. And guess what? The 6 high performers were actually converting 1 in 10 of those customers. Now, it isn't just these 6 high performers that operate like this. In every team, in every business, in every organization, there are people who think down here and people who think up there. And it doesn't take Einstein to work out who the high performers are going to be. Just put them in a room and listen to the way that they talk to each other, and you can hear who the high performers are going to be without even looking at an Excel spreadsheet. Now, I could be accused of grossly oversimplifying the link between mindset, behavior, and performance, and you might be right. There are swathes of research and evidence out there that basically make the link between mindset and performance. But the thing is, and it's all good, and it's all true, and it's all right, there's everything from the nature-nurture argument through cognitive behavior therapy right the way through to neuroscience, and it's all good. But when you've got 5 minutes to persuade somebody in the moment to think differently, to see a different way, and to take a different action, I don't know anything better than this cheeky little ladder to help somebody to see a different way of being. Now, once you share this with people, it becomes incredibly sticky. It gets its own legs once you shared it with a group of people. I was working with some managers up in Rotherham, up north, and one of the managers came to me after we'd done a session, and she said, "I love this, Sally." She said, "I love this ladder. It's brilliant. When I get my team in a team meeting and we're all sat round and we're getting a little bit negative and a little bit cynical and we're struggling to come up with answers, I just get the ladder out and I point at it and everybody changes direction in the room." Seemingly, you only need a ladder and a finger in order to get people to change behavior. The ladder also seemingly has no hierarchy. I was walking through a business and there was a PA sat behind a glass window, and somebody who looked a lot more senior than her walked into the room and he started gesticulating like this. He's always having a rant about something. And the PA just looked at him, pointed at the ladder behind her head, looked back at him, and he went, and off he walked out. Thus proving the point that, in that moment in time, somebody very junior could hold somebody very senior to account in that moment without even needing any words. This little ladder is also incredibly memorable. I was on the phone to somebody the other day who I didn't think that I knew, but he started the conversation by saying, "Actually, Sally, we've met before. I was at an event that you were running where you were sharing us something about mindset. You're the ladder lady." And there we go, 25 years of performance improvement, all classed into 2 words, ladder lady. Brilliant. Now, of course, it's not just for business. The ladder is for life as well. And I would hazard a guess that every single person in this room has got something that they would like to change, something that they would like to be different. I don't know, maybe you'd like to get fitter, or maybe you would like to improve a relationship, or maybe you'd like to take on a new challenge, or set yourself a new goal, or pursue a new dream, whatever it is that you'd like to do. And I don't believe for a minute that any of us set out to fail. If I were to ask everybody in this room, put your hands up if you're low on accountability. Put your hand up if you don't like to take responsibility. Nobody's going to put their hand up because none of us really believe that we're like that. But I do think that we have a habit of getting a little bit stuck. From time to time, we will all operate on the bottom rungs, and we'll go down there every now and again. And I think some of us maybe could think of people who like to live down there. Can everybody think of people who live on the bottom rungs of the ladder? We call them the mood hoovers. These are the people in society who love to live on the bottom rungs. They love to wallow in their own self-pity of their existence. They love to blame everybody else for the sorry state of their lives, and they love to drag us all down there with them. And I'm all right with that, as long as we accept one thing. While we're on the bottom rungs of that ladder, nothing changes. Nothing changes while we're down there. We don't set out to pursue new challenges while we're telling ourselves, I could never do that. We don't set ourselves new goals while we're telling ourselves, I haven't got the time. We don't make new relationships when we're telling ourselves, actually, it's everybody else's fault. And we definitely don't try to build a new world while we're telling ourselves it's somebody else's problem. So each and every one of us needs to make the choice to move above the line if we actually want something to change. And I believe it's these little 8 rungs that allow us to do that, to reflect our way of thinking like a prism in front of us, to start to make decisions about the kinds of choices and the kinds of changes that we want to make. Now, this little ladder is that simple. It even works with kids. I've got a confession to make. I have 3 children. That's not the confession. I have one of these ladders on my fridge at home, and that's the confession. I'm a parent, and I want to instill the values and the virtues of accountability into my children as early as possible without ramming it down their throats, and I'm not sure I always achieve that balance. But when my daughter was 8 years old, she came home from school, and she'd had a bit of a falling out with one of her friends, and she was telling me all about this, and she'd said that one of her friends had called her names and encouraged other girls to also get involved, and she was understandably a little bit upset, wouldn't we all be? So I got the ladder off the fridge, and I was just talking to her about what part she might have played in the episode, and she was, quite clearly reluctant to put any of the blame at her own 2 feet. So we carried on the conversation for some time, and we were going round and round in circles, and I eventually just said to her, pointed to the top rung, what do you want to happen here? Do you want to be friends with this girl? Is that what you want? And she said, yeah, of course I do. I said, brilliant. Why don't you take responsibility, go to school tomorrow, and say you're sorry, and you want to make up, and you want to be friends? And she looked at me, and she said, why would I do that? It was all her fault. And the thing is this, in every relationship in our lives, there are always 2 perspectives, right? Always 2 ways of looking at a situation. And I wonder how many of us are sitting waiting and hoping that somebody else will make the first move. How many of us are waiting for somebody else to apologize because we have a view that it's all their fault. And how many relationships, while we're waiting, are disintegrating and evaporating right in front of us because we've reached this stalemate of not doing something about it. Once you've got this way of thinking, it becomes impossible really to not see everything through this lens, which can be a little bit irritating from time to time, but this is how you start to see things. And I was on LinkedIn the other day, and there was a post that really struck me. It was by a chap called Foz Khan. Now, I don't know Foz Khan at all, but his post really struck me. He started off by saying this: at the age of 11, I decided to be a barrister. My problem was that I knew no one in the law. Now, how many of us might have stopped right there? It's not my jurisdiction, it's not where I come from, I haven't got enough connections, I've not got enough experience. Not Foz Khan. He went on to write, by 16, I plucked up the courage to visit a court. I was very intimidated by the ye olde worldy of oak panelling, posh accents, posher suits, and 10-syllable words. But it was that one step of accountability that changed the course of his life forever. As he was leaving the building, a senior barrister came up to him and said, if you ever want any help, just give me a call. And he did. And the senior barrister mentored him right up until the age of 23, where he helped him to get a job. And Foz Khan goes on to write that in that moment, he decided that he would pay it forward, and he's since helped 200 students make their way into law as well. So it seems that accountability isn't just in pursuit of our own dreams, but we can also use it to help others in pursuit of theirs as well. Now, I don't expect for a minute that Foz Khan is walking around the universe with an accountability ladder hanging out of his back pocket, much as that would be lovely for me. Because some people just have the ability to wake up every morning and make a choice to be accountable for their actions. But I do think it takes all of us to be able to look at ourselves in the mirror every day and be able to say to ourselves, everything that happens to me today is all my fault. Now you might say, well, hang on a minute, all my fault? Is everything that happens to me all my fault? Because there are lots of things, I agree, that happen to us that are outside of our control. Things that we can't choose or change, things that just happen to us. But I believe, through my experience and my work, that this little ladder can even help us to be accountable and to be the best we can be, even in the face of adversity. I was working with a lady a few years ago, and she had been living with cancer for many years when I met her. And during the course of the time that I was working with her, she learned that the cancer had become terminal. And she said to me, not just because of the ladder, but she said to me during our time working together that she'd come to realize that even though she couldn't control the outcome, she could certainly control the person that she wanted to be and the legacy that she wanted to leave during the time that she was alive. To conclude, my idea, my firm belief, my passion is this. I believe that we all have the ability to either operate down here or operate up there. And I believe that we can all make a choice to achieve whatever we want to achieve, to be whoever we want to be, whether you define that as passing A-level exams, or whether it's in pursuit of a new career, or whether it's in the pursuit of success at work, or whether it's in pursuit of building relationships or getting a job in law. I believe that any of us can choose to achieve anything we put our minds to, but it all starts with one little question: where am I on the ladder?